as man are prone to many things. One of those things is a sort of connection to each other that can be referred to as tribalism. There are many things that tribalism can take root in, whether it be a game series, an art style, or really anything. And if left unchecked, it can get out of hand really fast. But I digress. The point is, tribalism is one of the main sources of all the atrocities of history. So why not take a look at two of the most egregious examples that history has to offer? And to gain insight into history, we will be looking at the Gulag Archipelago and ordinary men. I would like to start with ordinary men because I have less to speak about, and I would like to get the shorter one out of the way. The book takes a look at what should be ordinary men, but these men are in Reserve Police Battalion 101 under 1940s German government. You know where this is going. Now, what makes these men so interesting to look at is the fact that they are older working-class men from Hamburg, meaning that, if anything, these men would more likely be commies rather than the no-no word. The first mass killing the men participated in was in the small town of... well, it's written as József, but the pronunciation website is saying yuzprgx. Well, if you know Polish, tell me if I was close. But regardless of my poor pronunciation, it's just northwest of Warsaw. The higher-ups knew that the unit was not the killing type, so the men were not told that they would be killing civilians until the time actually came. It has been said that the unit was disgusted, and even the major was crying when giving the orders according to witnesses. But most still did the deed as told. Of course, some did sneak away, though not like that saved anyone. Many interviews after the war showed that the men had some semblance of reasoning. Most claimed that they had no choice in the matter, that they were simply following orders, as the saying goes. Others said that they did not fully understand the actions that they were taking. There are many reasons why they did what they did. My thoughts? I do not know, nor can I ever fully understand what the men were thinking at the time. But it could have been a mix of pure pressure and detachment from reality. Now, I say detachment from reality because when you are given such a task, I do not know how one can do such a thing without at least trying to remove yourself from it in any way possible. The pure pressure could have been the forcing factor. They must have thought they had no other choice, so they detached themselves from reality, not knowing that everyone else is doing the same. Another justification given were that the Jews were going to die anyway, that it didn't matter who shot them in the end. Now that was one little section of this book. They of course did much more killing, they did much more of many things, and the book goes into much more detail. But I do not have the time to read it in its entirety, but I would ask you to read it if you have the time. Now when it comes to things like this, we would all like to think that if we were in that situation we would have done differently. We would have been the good guys, but in reality, you don't know that. And if I may be blatantly honest, I do believe that you would be killing with all the others. But of course, I cannot say I would be any different. Of course, hindsight is 20/20, so I can't say with certainty that I would have been better. The action of others affect everyone in one way or another. It is the culture around us and what we think the majority want. It's only survival instinct after all. I don't want it to sound like I'm downplaying what these men have done. I'm not. What they did is evil. All I wish to do is ask why they did what they did. I don't know if these men were sympathetic to the government, or if they just felt that it was necessary. In the end, I wish only to ask the question, and to hopefully arrive at a satisfactory answer. Now moving to the Gulag Archipelago, which is, in my opinion, more important for a multitude of reasons. The main one being that there are many fools that somehow think communism is a good idea. The point is, Ordinary Men was about people who perpetrated evil. The Gulag Archipelago is about those who received evil. The book was written by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, in which he speaks of his accounts in the Soviet prison system, also known as the Gulags. Why was this man imprisoned? He did the most heinous act of criticizing Stalin. In a series of letters he wrote to a friend during his time in the Red Army fighting World War II. In the beginning, Solzhenitsyn had a favorable outlook of communism, but that would change in due time. During his time in the Red Army, he was able to see firsthand what the Soviet system has given his fellow Russians, that being starvation and death. No doubt his time in the Red Army made his views of communism sway, but it was his time in the gulags that turned him into one of the harshest critics of this practice. During his time in the gulags, he found the heights people can find and the lows people can fall. He spoke of those who, despite their incredibly harsh circumstances, found themselves in a trance-like state. Solzhenitsyn found that the ones who survived and did not break down were the ones who adopted a stoic outlook on life. He wrote about how they were unbreakable, how they had such contentment for their situation regardless of what the situation may have even been. It was an attitude that he himself strived to adopt. Solzhenitsyn believed that every human, no matter how kind or just they may seem, is capable of evil. No matter how kind. The fools ignorantly believe they know what's best, and they believe that they are on the side of good. Solzhenitsyn himself put it best. The line separating good and evil passes not through states, nor between classes, nor between political parties either, but right through every human heart, and through all human hearts. The line shifts inside us, it oscillates with the years, and even with hearts overwhelmed by evil, one small bridgehead of good is retained, and even in the best of all hearts, there remains an unuprooted small corner of evil. It is impossible to expel evil from the world in its entirety, but it is possible to contain it within each person. Solzhenitsyn said that the reason many people are unaware of their acts of evil is due to unquestioning adherence to ideology or identity that will provide them with justification for the actions they make. An appropriate example would be the adherence to the communist state. The communist ideology provides a common utopia by outlawing private ownership over the means of production. If someone is not given up to their private ownership, then they are getting in the utopia. Therefore, they must be dealt with. The ideology allows evil acts to be disguised in a cloak of the greater good. Solzhenitsyn knew that one's perception of communism would be different depending on if the person has been forced to experience its effects firsthand. Of course, there will be those who only theorize about the utopian dream from the comfort of a non-communist state. These are the dumbest of individuals. Solzhenitsyn had even compared communism to a dead dog. I shall call it such as well. Solzhenitsyn often thought about the nature of evil, but he also thought of the best way to combat it, and the answer that he arrived at was truth. Solzhenitsyn wrote, "We have to condemn publicly the very idea that some people have the right to oppress others. In keeping silent about evil and burying it within us so that no sign of it appears on the surface, we are implanting it, and it will rise up 1,000-fold in the future." As Solzhenitsyn said, "Let your credo be this, let the lie come into the world, let it even triumph, but not through me." The way I interpret this is to know, to have wisdom, and to never let falsehoods fester in your mind. In closing, Solzhenitsyn left us a message, and I would like to pass it on. All you freedom-loving left-wing thinkers in the West, you left laborists, you progressive American, German, and French students, as far as you are considered, this whole book of mine is a waste of effort. You may suddenly understand it all someday, but only when you yourself hear hands behind your back there, and step ashore on our archipelago. Now take care.